Hello, everyone. Welcome to Word Funk. I am Leon Thomas. I am joined by Austin Yorsky and Johnny Maloney. Fellows, how you feeling this week? What's good?
Are you guys surprised that we just, haven't given up yet?
In life or on the show?
Life first.
Let's keep our options open.
The show presumably would follow afterwards.
I feel like I'm in a constant state of slowly giving up.
I just realized it today, that, how old I am and how long I've been at this. And I was kind of surprised. I was like, wow, I must be at least a little bit tough to be able to get through all this shit and, not just, utterly give up.
Is that called entropy? Hey, physics. Is that called entropy?
Not really, no.
Okay, dang.
No.
That's why I'm a literature guy.
Entropy is just how in a closed system, everything will just kind of devolve to chaos. You can.
That's what I'm saying. It's just you're a force of nature, Johnny, and you can't be stopped.
But it's not that chaotic. I mean, I show up here every week to talk to you guys, and, despite the fact that we spend a lot of time complaining, I feel like the ideals that we have are still intact.
Cool.
And we are still, committed to proselytizing them and, and trying to convince people and being we haven't succumbed to the cynicism that most young optimists I have known have turned into.
I'd say there's a marked difference between our early days and now, though. I think there's been a character arc.
It's darker. I'm not suggesting that, that the subject matter that we're attacking is still lighthearted and fluffy and, all about, gee, what kind of leathers are gimps wearing this month? But what I'm saying is that we, our personalities appear to have remained kind of untouched by this darkness.
Johnny, I love how important we sound right now. It's really good. It's really good for me and my self-esteem. So I like the things that you're saying in your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
The first 3 minutes of this episode are just the Undertale scene. In spite of everything, it's still you.
I don't know what that means, but all right. I mean,
because you only played 1/3 of Undertale.
I still haven't played Undertale yet.
You don't have to.
It's only one of the best games of the generation. It's fine.
I want to.
You shouldn't. You shouldn't even want to, Johnny.
Look, I admit, I fucked
kidding.
up this week. I didn't finish The Witcher 3. I was going to try and avoid it for the whole goddamn episode, but you caught me. You caught me. That's not completely true. I kind of finished The Witcher 3. Mm-hmm. I finished the main campaign, and I finished Hearts of Stone, and I'm in the middle of playing Blood and Wine. So
I want everyone in the audience and people in the comments to be clear. I actually don't care whether or not anyone plays Undertale. I'm exaggerating for comedic effect. You don't have to lose it and talk to me about how cute the skeleton is.
If I were you, Leon, I would put that warning at the beginning of the episode because you can rest assured that the moment after you said that, it's on.
The game is only okay.
We've established don't... chaotic Leon, neutral Johnny, lawful Austin.
Yeah, and also I barely care about video games, so you shouldn't take my opinion on a new video game too seriously. Anyway,
fuck, you're really cool. Do you ever just stop and think about how cool Leon is? With all his
I do
distance from vulnerability and just
he doesn't give a fuck, does he?
No, that's not true. I give many fucks about a lot of really important things. Video games just happen to be not one of them at all.
Yeah, I mean I get that.
Yeah, well, good. Yeah, there are many fucks given daily with me. I assure you.
Just handing them out. Just
sure,
standing on a street corner, just home printed fucks, just giving them away.
Yeah. Artisanal.
Thick cardstock. some nice embossed letters, like an excellent font choice. None of this like Times New Roman shit.
My fucks are Comic Sans, but Leon, did you want to talk about something this week?
Yeah, actually, I had a question for Johnny. What are the new gimp suit leathers this month?
Actually, believe it or not,
Yeah.
Imitation leathers are in this season.
Really?
Yep. Yeah, imitation leathers.
Is it?
So what we're talking about is actually we're talking about natural fabrics that are actually like brushed and painted to give like the impression that they are like treated leathers and things like that. You get this wonderful kind of like used leather look that's also very breathable and much more flexible. Yes, they are not as durable as using classical leather, but
Sure.
unless you do this professionally, and we're talking like a 7 days a week outfit kind of thing, we're pretty sure that the decrease in dollar value, you can stretch your budget much, much farther using these imitation leathers to get yourself some pretty stylish bang for your buck.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Thank you for that update.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
In other news, we're bombing Syria.
Yeah. I mean, I guess. It's
That's your politics for the week. Sorry. Anyway.
If you want to go there. Yeah, we sure are.
Without congressional approval, as I understand it.
Yeah, but that's not even a thing anymore. I mean, not that should ever like be something to be dismissed.
Yeah, but I mean,
it's
you just you just kind of gave up on it.
Yeah, I know. It's not a thing anymore. Look,
it was very important that Obama get approval. This is different, though.
Well,
it's different.
In all fairness, right? You know that he would get congressional approval if he actually like asked for it. If he gave 2 tugs of a dead dog's cock.
This is the Onion today. It was like Congress doesn't know what it did to give the impression it wouldn't give him everything he wants.
Oh my. So
maybe he's just practicing. All right, because like maybe at the end of the year, at the end of 2018, right? Maybe he's gonna have to bypass Congress because he's like, maybe he's worried. Are they worried? Do you think they're worried?
Yeah, I don't know how deep we want to go down the whole fucking raid on Michael Cohen this week. Maybe there are better outlets than this podcast to dissect that particular event, but it's getting wet and wild out there in a number of ways.
Like, what am I going to do about that whole law degree that I never told any of you that I had?
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised. You usually win Law Corner.
I have a couple lawyers in my family, actually.
Mm-hmm. That's neat.
Not that I have them on speed dial and consult them while I'm podcasting.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's just my family is a weird mixture of chemists and lawyers.
Oh.
Lawyers do need a lot of chemicals.
Well, and certain chemicals also need lawyers.
That's very true. It's a fucking circle of life.
It's an absolutely beautiful symbiotic relationship.
But I feel like I cut Leon off. Did you have a topic, Leon, that wasn't gimp suits or Syria?
Oh, definitely not. That's the thing. I mean, I have like a few small things I could talk about, but they're not substantial.
Okay, it's okay. Stop talking.
No. I'll get through them, but they'll be quick. Kino's Journey is my favorite anime ever, and they started making a new Kino's Journey that's basically a reboot. But not with like the same stories or anything, and not a sequel. It's just,
so it's a reimagining.
It's just here's more Kino, and it is very much. I've only watched. That's the thing.
So it's a revisiting.
Okay, hold on. Oh my god.
So it's a rehashing.
You need to stop.
So it's a renewing.
There's a new Kino's Journey. I don't know. Anime is weird. Like they do like 13 episodes, and that's usually it. And then many years later, they're like, let's do 13 more.
It can't be a reverbing.
But yeah, I watched the pilot, I guess, or the first episode of the new Kino's Journey series, and it's very good. The first episode. It's about basically, for anyone who doesn't know the premise of Kino's Journey, she is on a motorcycle, and the motorcycle can talk. The motorcycle is alive, and she goes from country. She goes from country to country and stays there for only about 3 days.
Are these real? Are they real countries, or is it like that?
No,
that kind of like anime. This is obviously Germany, but we're going to call it Germlandia.
No, it's not even that. It's just they're completely like fantasy countries that have like bizarre rules and things like that. And in experiencing them, we get like little bits of philosophy throughout it, which is pretty good for me. So this the first episode of the new series, she goes to a country where it is not illegal to murder someone. So so you think like, oh, she's going to get there and it's like the Purge 24/7. But it's not. Everyone is like really chill all the time. And everyone's like, oh, I guess everyone's just like okay with it. Or something. And then someone tries to kill Kino. And then the whole town kills him for trying to kill her. Spoilers, I guess. So here's the thing. Yeah, it's legal to do it. But people are still going to stop you, and they're going to stop you with also murder.
Could you imagine that? People having a moral compass that just wasn't, like, handed down to you from on high, or, like, a rich dude in a weird hat who liked to dress up in weird frocks that were, like, you know, gold raiment or something like that, just not...
It's intense. She leaves the city... And someone is like, should I go there? I want to feel safe. And she's like, you'll be safe. You might feel safe there, but I guess it depends on your perspective. And then she leaves, and then we think about it because that's what those episodes are like. So it feels very much like the original series so far. So I'm into that. I'm all about it. I started watching the show when I, too, was traveling from country to country. Not that many countries, but, like, more than one, I guess. So I found that enjoyable for me and what I was doing with my life. But now I'm watching the new one, and it's also very good, and it's very pretty, and, like, HD and stuff. Whereas
Where are you watching it, Leon?
I'm watching it through Funimation.
Oh.
Yeah, it has the English dub. I was basically waiting for Funimation to do the English dub version of it and have it available for me, and now they do, and so I'm watching it. And that's basically it. I've only seen one episode, so like I said, this is not a substantial thing I can talk about, or like I binged watched the whole series. But you know, it's good so far.
I'm curious. Do you have any passionate thoughts on dub versus sub?
I prefer dub unless it's terrible, basically. We've talked about this before. If it's animated, I prefer dub. If it's a live action movie, I prefer subtitles. And I'm sure there's like a perfectly good reason why that is, but that's just the way it clicks in my brain. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that most dubs of live action movies, you can just kind of tell, and it takes you right out of it. Whereas dubs of anime, you know, their mouths are moving more or less as they should at this time, whereas a lot of English dubbed movies in live action just do not, and it's awkward. Yeah, that's basically it.
First of all, Leon, that premise, while interesting, does, I think if you take a step back, sound like a very libertarian fantasy. Like, let's just do away with all these laws, man, and just have like a free society. And if anybody steps out of line, you know, free rational men will sort it out.
So we're going back to the philosophy and not the subtitle.
A regulated militia, Austin, are you saying?
Basically. And I don't want to dwell too much on that because I haven't seen it, so I can't really speak to the actual thing more so than just the way you described. But I do want to say that all I know about the Kino's Journey reboot is that I'm only aware of it because
Wait a second. Have we settled that it's a reboot now?
Oh my god. Yes. I'm going to catapult you into the sun, Johnny.
I would love that.
It'd be pretty cool. Or no, it'd be very hot. The only reason I know it exists...
No, it would get really cold at first, and then in several months' time, it would get super hot.
Okay, well, the punchline of that whole thing was that I saw everyone tweeting about it when it came out, and it was mostly to dunk on it for being not good, so I'm interested that you really liked it so far. I wonder if that will change, or if you just have very different taste than other anime fans, which seems likely now that I said it out loud.
Austin, I thought we established this just mere minutes ago. Leon don't give a fuck what you like.
That's true. So I'm glad you liked it, although I'm surprised when you brought it up. I thought you were going to say it's shit all over my favorite anime.
Nah. If I didn't like it, I would just stop watching it and stop subjecting myself to it, and then I could just I rewatched like Kino's Journey like a couple years ago, like the original series. Like if they never made any more, it would be okay. But they did, and like so far, I'm like, yeah, cool. I guess this is kind of dumb, and this is like a nitpicky thing. I guess I just really liked the sound of Hermes, the motorcycle from the first Kino's Journey, because in addition to like he having like a cool voice, it was like metallic and like echoey, whereas which you would expect coming from a motorcycle. Whereas the voice of Hermes, the motorcycle or Motorrad in the new series just sounds like a regular voice coming from a machine, which is fine. It's okay. It's not going to destroy my love of it. Maybe that bothered some people more, but whatever. We'll see how the rest of the series goes.
I do like the premise, though, that like, man, what if we just got rid of all this regulation? It's like, we tried that. You know what happened? People said, we really need some regulation. That is the origin story of how you got to that point, actually.
Yeah. It's weird. Like the town doesn't. That's the only thing that's legal. Like you can't steal or anything. Like it's not the purge, where all the laws are gone for a while. It's like this very specific law you can't do. I'm sorry, you can do, but you better not. It's like a wink. Like you're absolutely allowed to do this, but man, you better fucking not. So it's like it's a very weird like dynamic there.
I mean, that's actually that's a real thing in law. That's what's called de juris or de facto. I think de facto is basically in the vernacular. People know what that means when you say it, but there's actually a legal distinction between like what's on paper and what's actually happening. So in America, we have a history of racial discrimination de juris because it was legal. And then after we got rid of that, we still had racial discrimination de facto, which meant even though it didn't say it on paper, it was just how things were. So in this town, murder is not illegal de juris, but it is de facto because you'll get murdered. And so philosophically, there isn't really a distinction insofar as like the actual outcome. It's just quibbling.
The distinction is that your execution will be fast, even if you don't go through with the entire murder. If you would try to murder someone, we will murder you faster. That's basically what happens. Like even attempted murder is capital punishment there. So that's the real truth. That's like the twist that we find out at the very end of the episode. Like because we're like, how does this even work? What are they even talking about? And then you find out, and that's like the big reveal.
Yeah, we could get bogged down in this. I do think it's fascinating because really, it's not. It's just super illegal. It's not legal. It's a higher. Right. It's really a higher threshold.
In a matter of speaking, that's basically what there's this sci-fi trope, and the sci-fi trope is in the future blank is illegal, or in the future blank is scarce, and due to this one change, everything is different. And that you see that in a bunch of movies.
Butterfly effect, but butterfly is murder.
Wow. So, but yeah, you see, he's just trying to be funny.
Yeah.
But no, but yeah, that's the thing. It's like
no, sorry, for a second there, I thought you were talking about the movie Butterfly Effect.
No. Although, if it was legal to murder Ashton Kutcher, think about it.
All right. But the point is, like, every episode of Kino's Journey is kind of like that. She goes to this town, and there's just one odd quirk about it. And because of that, everything is different for some reason. And that's like the show. It's in a way, it's kind of like Star Trek, where like the real story is where they're going, and like what they're always visitors to somewhere, and like they have to interact with like a completely upside down world.
Mr. Spock, this is a planet where they only eat rutabaga. How bizarre! We have to shoot them with photon torpedoes.
That's exactly how that works.
Every episode of Star Trek is this is a planet where, and then they shoot them. That's how it works.
I mean, I mean, you joke, but like kind of.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got like way more out of this one episode of this one show I saw. So that was cool. I'm glad we did this.
That's the secret of Word Funk. We really kind of choose which topics we go deep on. Some we could, like Syria could be its own episode, but instead it was one depressing sentence. And Kino's Journey could have been one sentence, and it was 10 minutes.
Right. So yeah, I liked that one episode. I sure hope I like the rest of them well. I'm worried now because you went and told me that people don't like it. And I need to hear that, Austin.
I'm sorry.
Messing with my headspace. But then again, maybe this was the good episode because they put the best one forward. And now the rest of them are just going to be like straight up garbage. So I don't know. I was excited for this, but you ruined it. You ruined it for me, Austin. No, I'm kidding.
Leon, you're about to enter a town where there's Kino's Journey, but one season is good and one season is bad. What would you do? Think about it.
I know.
How would that society work?
Okay, I do have one more thing, and that again, it was this is probably only going to take like 2 minutes, but then it won't, and then I'll shut up for the whole episode, I guess, because this is literally all I did except work.
It's not about you, Leon.
I know, but like, what? Okay, listen. In terms of shows, like television shows, from like the 50s and 60s.
Oh boy.
I know, like those kind of shows.
Yeah,
the dark times.
Mm-hmm. Is there a show that holds up better than the Twilight Zone?
Was The Prisoner 60s or 70s?
Prisoner was 70s, I believe, or late 60s.
I'll look it up while you guys debate what I say.
That's the only one I could think of besides Twilight Zone I could even stomach.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely you're bang on there.
I actually did. I think I talked about this in the show before. I went back and rewatched some Twilight Zone, and it still totally holds up.
Okay, good. All right, that's solved. Okay, the end.
Is that the whole thing?
No, but in all seriousness, like for some reason the other day, I was like, you know what I would like to do? I just turned on Netflix and I'm like, oh, the Twilight Zone is here. They have seasons 1, 2, 3, and 5 for some reason. I don't know where 4 went, but okay. So I watched my favorite Twilight Zone episode, I Am the Night, Color Me Black, and it gave me feels again.
67, 68 was The Prisoner.
Yeah, it's okay. Having not seen that, I can't speak to it, but okay. But yeah, I still think that episode is great, and it's if it had been made exactly the same way today, you would say, oh, that's kind of preachy, and the acting is different. But that's just the acting style of the time, and that was the writing style of the time, and I thought it was really great. And then I watched my favorite scary episode of the Twilight Zone, The Grave, which I like a lot too. And then I was like, that's good for now. I've seen these episodes hundreds of times because they used to play them like nonstop on Sci-Fi Channel. But yeah, okay. But with one possible exception to a show that I have not seen.
I am surprised that you haven't seen The Prisoner, Leon.
I've heard of it for like decades, and I just have never gotten around to watch it. I know what it is due to parody and references, and but I've just never sat down and decided to watch it. It's much like many British shows. It was one season, so it shouldn't be that hard to like track it down and just binge it at some point. I just haven't. That's basically it. I believe he's on an island and there is a bubble.
That's I mean, geez, I don't think I could come up with a better plot synopsis myself.
Yeah. That's it. I know, like, a line from it is, like, I am not a number, I am a free man, and then laughter. But whatever.
No laughter.
Okay, no laughter, but, like, I know that line because it's in a song.
Wait. I'm sorry. My mistake. Yeah, in the opening credits, not in the scene that features that line, but in the opening credits, there is laughter.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, that must be what that song that I'm thinking of was referencing. All right. Cool. Maybe one day I will watch The Prisoner and we'll all talk about it. Or maybe, like, literally the two of you who have seen it could talk about it at any time.
It
and not
is
wait
one
for
of my
me.
favorite television shows of all time, actually.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, it's like, I think it's like Velvet Underground or like Pixies or something where it's really influential. And if you go back, you're like, it's a little rough because of the time, but it's like you can still see it's obviously like very good in its way, in its time. So.
Yeah, it's like it's super dependent on context as well. Like a lot of people don't know that it's like kind of almost sort of a sequel to Patrick McGowan's previous series, which was Danger Man. Which in the United States, was also known as Secret Agent Man.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's nothing like that, like nothing at all like that. But it does a really interesting. Basically, it's about it's sort of an examination of whether or not you can ever actually truly get out.
Of what?
Of like basically, well, it was the Cold War, right?
Oh, okay.
And he was Secret Agent Man during the Cold War. He did that for like 7 years or something like that. He was Secret Agent Man, and then at the very beginning of The Prisoner, he like tries to hand in his resignation, and it's like, you know, can you ever really truly be free from the forces that control you, or the forces that have been after you that you've been fighting against for your whole career? Like it's a really once you start to live that life of paranoid suspicion, can you ever really truly be free of it?
Oh. Well, the only way to truly be free, Johnny, is to become a free man of the land.
Yes.
As we know.
Yes. Which I'm
All right.
not currently doing.
Yeah. It sounds hard. I like stores and things. So they're good.
I pay my
right.
taxes. I'm a good
I do-
Canadian citizen.
I pay my taxes too.
I say my agreed quota per week.
Yeah.
Taxes are very good. I paid taxes recently because of the time of year it is, and I was like,
Yes.
wow, self-employment is hard, but also,
Oh yeah.
I'm going to look at this number that I have to pay and say, I am helping people, and I feel good about that.
Yeah. For anyone who's listening who does not know, when you're self-employed, you don't have anyone taking money out of your paycheck, so you pretty much always will owe the government when it is tax time. But that's just the price you pay for being your own boss. And I think, although I owed thousands of dollars to the government a few weeks ago and paid promptly, I also feel like that seems like a small price to pay for like doing whatever I want all the time.
And also just civilization in general.
Yeah. Also, I'm cool with taxes just because they create a society in which people have some kind of social safety net. Not enough, really, if I'm being honest, but something.
We should all pay more. It's just the psychological aspect of just sitting down at your computer being like, all right, it's time to do this. Oh, that's a number.
Yeah.
You not paid my taxes
Ever?
this year.
I'm just joking.
But that's okay because in Canada they're not due until the end of April. So
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense then.
I was going to do them this weekend.
No, good for you.
Cool.
I literally don't ever do my taxes myself because I feel like even though it's a few $100s for someone else to do them for me, that peace of mind that someone who knows exactly what the fuck they're doing did them instead for me is like it's priceless to me. I know people who are self-employed who just like, oh no, you just use this software, you'll be fine. I'm like, nope, no way. I'm absolutely not going to do it. Plus, if something is wrong, I can blame someone else, which is very good.
I mean, if something's wrong, Leon, there is a volitional element to criminal penalties. So unless they can prove you did it on purpose, you're not going to jail. They'll just make you pay the right amount.
Yeah. I'm not worried about going to jail. I'm just worried about letters in the mail because the IRS did send me a letter in the mail by accident once that said I actually owed a few thousand extra dollars more.
And weirdly enough, there was also a bunch of Scientology literature in there.
No, but that's I mean also, but not within.
Unrelated.
But they sent me a letter that says, "Oh, it looks like you owe X amount of money. We would like it now, please." They didn't say please, and I was like, "Oh, this is a mistake." But I was really freaked out about it because, like back when this happened, I was not in a good place in my life, and I freaked out about things all the time. So I proved that I did not owe them that and it's pretty easy because I can just show my bank statements and whatnot and say, no, here, you're wrong. And darn it, if they didn't get back to me and say, yep, you owe $0. So it was like, oh, thank you.
And then you sent a letter to the IRS, which simply read, "Dear IRS, lol owned. Best, Leon."
Yeah, I don't like dislike the IRS. They're just a bunch of people doing their jobs. But they are still scary. I don't ever want to get a letter in the mail that says you messed up your taxes.
My professor for tax law was like one of the head IRS guys, and he was talking about how furious people at the IRS are about the way they're portrayed. Like people talk about like the IRS code, and it's like, no, it's Congress's code. We are legally obligated to carry it out. We don't make the rules. It's literally the Congress always is talking about like, oh, that dastardly IRS is trying to take your money and only we can save you from them. It's like, motherfuckers, you write it. It's you. It's like literally all fucking spin and propaganda to like make the IRS look bad when they're just like a bunch of nerds.
Right, they're just the workers. So yeah, I'm never really mad at the IRS when I have to like write checks for thousands of dollars for them because I knew that was coming anyway, and it's not their fault. And I'm not even mad at Congress for saying that I need to pay a certain amount of taxes to be self-employed. Because again, like it's going towards some things that I approve of and some things I don't. I guess, but it's just taxes are just the price for living in a society, and I wish people could just kind of accept that. But there's such this like especially American hatred towards taxes. I guess that's because of how we were formed. It's an old grudge we haven't let go of. Anywho, sorry. It's hard to make taxes interesting, so maybe I should stop talking about them now. Sorry for everyone. We're recording this the day after tax day in America, but apparently a couple of weeks before tax day in Canada. I didn't know that.
It's not a sexy topic, but it's important, and
it is.
Just give it its time. Put it out there. Everyone, soak that in, and move on.
Yeah. Oh, I'm done. I'm definitely done. I feel like I took up way more time than I was expecting to, and I'm sorry. So Austin or Johnny, if you have anything that's actually interesting, like, go for it.
I always
jump
do.
in.
Interesting.
I mean, there's some music news. You guys see new Father John Misty album?
I did not.
Yeah.
No.
I think 3 singles are out right now. They're fine.
Again?
He's fine.
It just feels like he just released another album like the other day.
Yeah, well, most of his songs are just kind of him talking about stuff. So it's not, I don't know how, I mean, I'm not trying to salt the man's game, but he does have a, I'll say a conversational lyrical style that I don't know is too intensive.
Mm-hmm.
He's not in the workshop banging those out. Also, Weeknd had a new. You guys don't care about any of this. He did have a new EP.
Well, you were nice enough to listen to my Kino stuff, so I will listen to your Weekend.
Yeah, there's the only one, or there's 2 E's, not the 3, so you do have to pronounce it like that.
I believe so.
Obnoxiously. I mean, I don't have too much to say. He's one of the most popular artists in the world. He released new music. It's a big deal, but
okay.
I listened to it. The single is really, really good. The rest of it is fine. That's music. As far as other stuff, I have a law case I wanted to run by you guys.
Okay.
I'll skip past a lot of the stuff that gets us to the fun part because it's like, you guys know Miranda rights, right? Like a guy was arrested and then he confessed and then he argued that the confession didn't count because he didn't know his rights, and so
Right.
Court said cops have to warn you, and you've all seen TV shows. The cops have to say you have the right to remain silent. That whole
Yeah,
thing.
but like legally speaking, isn't that only when somebody like arrests you?
So, that's a good question, Johnny. The test is you have to be in custody, and there has to be a coercive atmosphere. And the test for that is like what's questioning. This is the case. So, there's a guy. He shoots another guy with a shotgun.
Right.
Then he ditches.
Just for fun.
Well, the reasons aren't important. I don't know, actually, off the top of my head.
It feels like it is, but okay.
It's not.
Let's say it's Beanie Baby related.
Yeah.
I bet it was important to him.
Yeah, sure. It's not important for the legal analysis.
Fair enough.
The important thing is he ditches the shotgun. The police arrest the guy, can't find the shotgun. There's three cops in the car with him, and they're driving him. And their captain says on the radio, like, don't question him, don't Mirandize him, just bring him here. We need to find the shotgun. We got to question him here, but don't do anything to fuck this up.
Right.
And so they're driving, and one cop says to the other cop, man, there's a school for special needs children near here. Sure would be a shame if one of them found the gun and hurt themselves. And the suspect says, oh no, I'll show you where the gun is. And so they go back. He shows them where it is, and they find it.
Right.
And then they, press charges for the murder he did. And he
Right.
tries to argue that because they didn't Mirandize him, they can't use the shotgun as evidence because it was improperly obtained. And if you can't use the murder weapon as evidence, he gets to go free.
No, I don't think it was improperly obtained. I
So
mean, he volunteered the location.
So
Yeah.
to go back to your prior point, when do they have to read the rights? That is the question. The test here was he being interrogated? Because if he wasn't being interrogated, then they don't have to.
No, he was not being interrogated.
I mean, he wasn't being interrogated, but clearly there was some level of deception on the part of the two police officers. They were trying to get him to talk. They weren't like, oh, like apropos of nothing, Officer Davis. Clearly there was some sort of intention to make something happen there. They weren't just like nonchalantly talking about the fact that I'm not wrong here, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, really what this case comes down to is what counts as questioning. And there's two parts to the opinion: the holding of like, is it admissible or not, and like why. And that's important. I think we've talked about this before, but just in case you don't remember, there's something in law called, we usually call it precedent, but the more technical term is stare decisis, which is like once something's decided, other courts have to follow it, lower courts. So it's important how they decide this because every other court will have to use this rule when deciding if someone needs to be Mirandized if questioning has started. So this is the case that kind of decides what that means.
okay.
I'm still no dice. Like, that's not interrogation. That is not interrogation. That is voluntarily revealing information.
Well, I mean, the guy revealed that information of his own free will. They didn't put the screws to him or anything. I agree, but clearly they were trying to provoke a response by like talking around it in order to do that. When I don't know if this is a thing that actually happens, but I saw in an episode of Law and Order SVU where they couldn't, torture this guy that they had in custody. So instead what they did is they kept him in there for a while, and he was hungry, and the detective would come in with like a really great sandwich, and he would eat it and was like, I'm sorry we have to keep you in here so long. And obviously he's eating the sandwich as a way to tempt this guy to just give them some sort of information so he can leave and actually get something to eat. This was obviously what he was doing, even though he wasn't doing it to him, like shoving it in his face.
Wait, so are you telling me that the hero of this TV program basically tortured a person who was in police custody?
I'm sorry, well, I mean, in the sense that he ate a sandwich in front of him.
I mean, still though. I mean, that's okay.
I would be very upset if someone ate a sandwich in front
Yeah.
of me and wouldn't let me have any. So yes, I get that absolutely. But,
I mean, I guess we live in a
but-
world with like 24 where the heroes just do actual torture. So whatever. I'm overly sensitive.
But yeah, no. Does it count as an interrogation if he wasn't I don't know. I feel like that's they're trying to like find a loophole here where like I'm not interrogating you. I'm interrogating around you. You know, it feels like it feels like the police version of when like someone's like older sister will put their hand near your face and say I'm not actually touching you. So is it technically interrogation if you're not looking at someone while you're trying to provoke a response in them? Is in my mind the question, and it just sounds kind of silly to me. I feel like in a manner of speaking, they were interrogating him, even if the two officers were technically looking at each other, trying to provoke a response in him instead of looking at him and speaking to him in like they're I don't know.
Austin, I think the cops got away with it.
I feel like the cops probably got away with it, but I do think that counts as interrogation.
Okay, so you're
In my mind,
you're weirdly both right.
Okay.
The cops did get away with it in the sense that they were allowed to admit it because it wasn't technically interrogation. But as Leon delineates, it is kind of a bullshit move. And what's weird about this...
it's a total bullshit move. I'm not
Yeah.
I'm not defending their actions or anything like that.
What's weird about this case is the test they announce for other courts to apply is questioning in a police context is any action or words which a reasonable person could believe would induce a response.
yeah. So
Okay,
that definitely is one,
Right, the solicitation of information even indirectly.
But
Yeah.
in applying this new test to this case, they seem to do a bad job of it because they say this wasn't interrogation and this goes remarked upon by the dissent. I don't know. Have we talked about this? I feel like I always skip past stuff like this, but in court cases, there's usually 9 justices, and they don't always agree. Whoever has more wins. So it's basically like a vote, and there's the majority opinion and then the dissent. So winners and losers usually, and there's also like pluralities and per curiam opinions. You don't need to know that; it's not important. But the dissent basically says. We agree with the test, but y'all fucked it up already. Like, first at bat, and we swung and we missed. Like, anybody could reasonably believe that you were trying to guilt trip this dude. But that's the way the court works, is if you have enough people who agree with you, you just win. It doesn't matter if you're right or if you make sense. So, yeah. Technically, the police cannot guilt trip you, but practically, they can do whatever they want. So yeah, that's just a weird. There's like a lot of the Miranda stuff I was reading is like pretty much what you'd expect, where like police like, hey, just tell me you did a thing and I'll do this for you, and then just don't. And it's like the police are allowed to lie to you in certain contexts. They're not allowed to make like specific promises, but you don't really have that much recourse about it. Like, what are you gonna do? So
They could just sort of like vaguely say things like, I'll help you out.
Yeah, that's the thing. They'll say like, I'll put in a word for you. And like, what are you going to do if they don't? Like, so there are rules, but who's enforcing them? Nobody. And like, even if someone did, what would be the penalty? They'd be like, damn it, Officer Jenkins, we told you about doing your job and getting the bad guys arrested. Damn it. Good.
Like, have we explicitly talked about how important it is to just have a lawyer with you?
Oh yeah. Oh my God. So, listen. Oh damn. I really wish I had this because a listener sent this in when it happened. But so we talked about this in class. But when it happened, a bunch of people sent me this because of the law of school stuff. But there was this guy who was arrested and he was being interrogated, and he said, "I want a lawyer, dog." And they didn't give him one, and he got, convicted, and he challenged it, and he said, I asked for a lawyer, and they didn't give it. And the court said, There's no such thing as a lawyer, dog.
Okay, that sounds like a bad joke. It's sad that it's real.
It is real, yeah. And so we walked through this in class. There's like basically a bunch of different examples of people asking for lawyers, and people said like, I think I want a lawyer. That doesn't count. You can think about a lot of things. Fuck you. You could say like, can I ask for a lawyer? Yeah, you can ask. Fuck you. Like, you have to say, I want a lawyer. Anything else doesn't count. You have to be so clear. And also, they say you have a right to remain silent. You have to say, I wish to remain silent. You can't just remain silent. That can be used against you. It sounds fucked up because they say you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you. Those things aren't what they sound like. You have to affirmatively assert your silence. There was a guy who literally just stayed silent, and the court said, you should have said something, idiot.
They stitched him up for being uncooperative, probably?
No, I mean, they just, for whatever the crime was, but they just said
Yeah.
that it didn't count as him asserting his rights. Like, how could the police know he wanted to remain silent? He didn't say anything.
You can probably, like, what is it? That's the Fifth Amendment, isn't it?
You went against some amendment stuff. So there's Fourth Amendment implications, Fifth and Sixth.
Yeah, but fifth is the silence, isn't it?
So
That's self-incrimination.
yeah, so
Self-incrimination.
yeah, so yes, but also it's more complicated than that. But yeah, it's believe.
Sorry,
me.
my amendment knowledge is not as up to spec as some of my more civically minded American counterparts.
I mean, it nobody's up on it really, and it's applied unequally. Let's say it's a whole thing, but a lot of those cases just come down to like depressing loopholes and stuff. Not super exciting for our podcast purposes, but
Yeah.
that's a whole thing. I have other things, Johnny. You haven't talked in a while. You want to talk?
I don't really have much. I started watching Lost in Space.
I heard the
Netflix show.
robot's hot.
There's a sexy robot.
Oh.
I don't know why.
Why not? I just said why not.
Well, I mean, I like, you know, I can't answer that question. It just, you know, like when I think Lost in Space robot, I go like way back to Lost in Space robot, who I don't feel like had a particularly sexy physique, but I mean, you're into what you're into. This robot's like got a rockin' bod. And he's got super sensitive eye. I think it's an eye. I don't know really what it is, but it's like swirly and blue, and I could just stare at it all day. It looks so soothing. But yeah, he's got ripping quads. That much is for sure. And they've got his package like nice and tightly wrapped up. It's pretty weird. The show itself is good. It's not great. Like, it's not the best sci-fi I've ever seen, but it does some things that I really appreciate. Like, it really kind of reminds me a little bit of Jericho, insofar as that, like, when a lot of writers approach stories about disaster, they don't naturally think out how that disaster evolves. Did you guys watch Jericho way back in the day?
No. Sorry.
No, but I'm very anti-wall, so it sounds good.
Okay. No, well, Jericho's a show about a nuclear catastrophe. A bunch of bombs go off in the United States, and it's basically about what happens afterwards. You know, they don't do that, like, fast forward 3 years and everybody has, like, beards and guns and, like, it's post-apocalyptic nuclear wasteland or anything like that. You know, like, they have to deal with shit like making sure that the town still has a supply of fresh water, or like managing their power plant. And when winter comes, they do this whole like story arc about like checking people's houses to make sure that they haven't died of the cold and shit like that. You know, like it really examines the anatomy of a disaster, and it's a great show too. If you ever get a chance to watch it, watch Jericho. But Lost in Space also kind of follows this, where it's sort of like a disaster happens and a bunch of people accidentally crash land on this planet, and it's like, okay, well, what would be the next problem? And it does a really good job of like I said, the anatomy of a disaster. And like the small victories that you make to overcome it, and weird things like how dangerous it is to actually be caught in a wildfire when you don't have anything like a proper firefighting system, or like rapid temperature changes when you don't have shelter properly built and things like that. And so it does a really great job of that. I really appreciate the roles that they've given the family. Like, so it's the mother and father, and then they have 2 daughters and 1 son. And like, one of the daughters is an engineer who is like specifically trained to go to space and colonize this place. One of them is a doctor, she's a medical doctor at like the age of 18. It's like it does a really good job of making all of the characters useful and having a purpose. And it's really nice to see like such a strong component of women in the cast too, who are all very, very good at what they do. Like the dad is a Marine. So he's like survival military dude. But like in order to survive on the planet, both of the daughters and the mom are just like crucially important. And I mean it helps too that Molly Parker plays the mom, and I love Molly Parker. She's fantastic. Been a fan for decades, it seems. And then Parker Posey plays the villain, and she's so good. At just like they've given her this great backstabbing, lying, conniving character, and she just plays it so well. She's so manipulative, and it's just like, I mean, when they redid the movie back in, I don't know, like 2000 or whenever it was, Gary Oldman chewed the scenery up so much as Dr. Smith,
I recall.
But like, Parker Posey is perfect. She's so good. She delivers like a fantastic performance. Almost all of the fucking technology that they have comes like straight out of Mass Effect. Like, if anybody at BioWare is watching this show, I wouldn't be surprised if they'd be considering legal action, because it is like it's a straight ripoff. Like, it's not even subtle. I'm not done yet, but I've watched like I think 6 or 7 episodes, and it's good middle of the road kind of pulpy sci-fi, Oh no, planet, what are we gonna do? Hey, there's a robot who's got like pretty impressive triceps.
On this planet, not paying your taxes is legal. Shoot a torpedo at him.
They don't have torpedoes, Austin.
Writing sci-fi is easy as fuck.
Just tell that to L. Ron Hubbard.
Blah. Blah.
Do people know that about L. Ron Hubbard? That he was
of course.
That he was a bad sci-fi writer beforehand? I mean, I know you guys do, but I don't know that, like...
I think that's like the second most well-known thing about him, but it's possible.
I'm pretty sure that the second most well-known thing about him is the molestation.
Well, okay.
I feel like we've gone so hard on Scientology that we've mined all the good bits out of it. Like, I don't know if I don't have any like good insights that I haven't said before. I can go back into like that, but it's like,
yeah,
we've seen Going Clear.
I think these days you have to have been a Scientologist to have a fresh take on it now.
Yeah.
And even then, like, all of that's just like personal story, Like, I don't think you can just make a documentary and be like, hey, have you guys heard about how crazy Scientology is?
Have we even talked about the thing?
Let me tell you what happened to my mother. What? Huh?
With taxes, because they wanted to be a church, they would be tax exempt, and they weren't. And so they basically just harassed the IRS until they gave in. They just basically flooded them with paperwork. This is like an actual thing that's like brought up in like my tax law class. It was like a big deal. It was like I can't believe they got away with it.
Which is why I've decided that if I'm ever going to declare myself a tax-exempt organization because I feel like the government is misusing my dollars, I'm going to crowdsource letters from all across the internet.
It's just how fragile the institutions actually are is so obvious these days that you get numb to it. But it is monumental that within our lifetime that we've seen so much of society erode.
Well, it's kind of ridiculous how quickly the population has increased, and yet the bureaucracy has not been able to keep up with technology. Like, we still get this whole, like, call your senators, because unless they hear somebody on the phone, they're not convinced you're a real person.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that it's not able to keep up with it. They choose not to. It's too expensive and takes too much effort, as far as they're concerned.
I think some people choose not to. You know, like, last year we had that giant ransomware hack. Do you remember that?
There's a million hacks. Not off the top of my head which one you mean, but yeah, there's a lot
No,
of
this was, it like crippled the National Health Service in Britain because they were all still running Windows XP or something.
Yeah, I mean, every government agency is running fucking DOS. They know it's too expensive to upgrade, and they have to retrain everybody, and it's a whole thing.
Yeah, like, what the fuck?
Yeah. But listen, there's always money for bombs, never money for healthcare.
Austin, did I say that your optimistic values were intact in the earlier part of this episode? Because I may have made a grave error.
I'm just saying a lot of people die from preventable diseases and treatable conditions, but it's very important that we blew up all those empty buildings in Syria.
Hey.
We had to send a message.
Not just blowing up empty buildings in Syria, but it's very important that we pay a bunch of companies to make bombs that we're not going to use because one of those companies makes the best bomb, and we're going to pay top dollar for that. But don't worry, everybody gets a participant ribbon, so here's a fat, juicy contract.
Speaking of all that depressing stuff, before we move into questions, I played a video game.
I love video games.
This isn't actually a transition. I was just trying to get us away from that. I played Telltale's Batman.
Like first season or like 2 seasons all the way through?
First season.
All right.
So for those who don't know, Telltale makes obviously these narrative heavy adventure games. Their take on Batman is like he's been Batman for a bit, but the villains haven't really been established. So it's like
he's like sophomore Batman.
Yeah, he's still finding his voice. And
he's like, I'm Batman. I'm Batman. I'm Batman. I'm Batman.
And they do the same thing.
I'm Batman.
Yeah. They're doing the same thing that like the Gotham TV show did, which is like, what if we did all the villains that you know and love, but they're like sexier? And it's really fucking corny and lame. It's not. I think at this point, most people have kind of exited the honeymoon phase with Telltale. And I'm not saying
we're all fed up with it.
Yeah, I'm not saying there's not good stuff in there because there is, but at this point, the shine has come off the apple, and technologically speaking, I think Telltale, I would classify it as like a full-blown scandal at this point, that they're still releasing games the way they are, buggy and ugly and broken. And I'm not saying there isn't a reason. There is. If you read, the people have done like in-depth profiles of the studio and how they expanded way faster than they possibly could have prepared for.
I think they get some software engineers to write a new engine for them.
They basically are laying the tracks as the train is moving. Some of it's self-inflicted because they, grabbed onto a comet as it was going fast by them, and it's just, that was the choice they made. But it sucks that the cool ideas buried in this game are stuck with all of the bad ideas and the janky ass engine and the crashing and the bugs and the stuff, because there are parts of it.
It's still crashing for you?
Oh yeah, I had to redo an entire 10-minute section of just listening to people talk.
Are you playing it on console?
Yeah, PlayStation 4.
All right.
That was a big momentum killing bummer. But like there are things in here I'm like, oh, that's a cool idea. I'd like to see that explored. And then it's like, but do I want to play more of this game? I did finish it, but it's the whole thing. I've discussed this before, so I don't want to go too far down this whole thing. But all comic book stuff is fan fiction at this point. Like none of the original writers are working on any of this, and we're on like the 10th iteration of every character. So at this point, that is what comic book stories are, is like, what if the Joker was this way? What if the Penguin was this way? And that's fine. If anything, they're like archetypes, like, you know, the gentleman fop and the hooker with the heart of gold. They're just like archetypes everyone shares.
My father was a big fan of considering modern superhero tales to really be like the modernization of like ancient myths. Mm-hmm. And fairy tales and stuff like that, like the characters are all people that we can kind of recognize, and the situations are all just generic enough, you know?
Which is something that like Zack Snyder tried to comment on. It failed, but tried a little bit with like the Superman is God thing. None of that really paid off. But like, yeah, that's percolating. It's not enough to be like, oh, I drew a design of what I think the Penguin would look like. Wouldn't this be cool? Like I don't know what they were trying to say with any of it. Like when I finished it, I was like, that was a twist you did, and I didn't see it coming because it goes against the established characters, which is fine. But like, why? Like what? You know, I guess what it comes down to is like at some point, aren't these rewrites and reimaginings gimmicks? And I don't know if that's a bad thing. Like, I don't know if I have a central thesis, but have you guys watched the Gotham show? Because I got like 2 episodes in. I couldn't, but I see people talk about it and they seem like they like it. Am I
good? I'm glad that they do.
Am I the problem? I guess.
No, it's just, you know. But I can't. I wish this is the only time I've ever wished I've seen that show so I could comment, but I can't. So
okay.
No, like Austin, like the problem that we have is what you're talking about are two ideas about the popular mythos that are just like they absolutely contradict each other. Whereas you're part of this one side that's like, hey, you know, can we deconstruct? Can we learn new things about the human condition? Can you give me something new about superheroes? Which, I mean, there are comics of, absolutely. And then on the other side, you have popular art, where people are like, oh man, the Penguin's got a bottle cap in his eye for a spectacle. That's gritty.
Yeah,
wait, does he?
It doesn't even have to be a deconstruction, though, right? Like I've read Watchmen, I've seen the movie. Like I get it, it's fine. It doesn't have to be like.
No, I'm not even talking about as far back as Watchmen. Did you ever read Brian Michael Bendis' Powers?
No, they made a TV show out of it. That's exclusive to PlayStation.
Make a TV show out of it. It's like it is a really, really good kind of deconstruction about superheroes, where like cops get involved and stuff like that. Where there's like I'm trying to remember the main character's name. I can't remember, but it's like it starts out when basically like a very famous superhero gets killed, and then the cops have to come in and be like, okay, well, I guess we have to investigate who killed this superhero. And it's like it goes on from there. Like, you know, like it's a cop drama basically set in a superhero universe. Then there was that show that was almost going to be good about the insurance company that I can't remember the name of it though, because it only lasted for like 4 episodes because they completely changed the format. Oh man. Oh jeez. I can't remember, but it was supposed to be a sitcom that was set in like the DC universe about an insurance company that basically has to change everything they're doing and all of their policies because superheroes suddenly became a thing. And they made this first episode that got aired at a Comic-Con, and it was really dry, and it was really like just deadpan and so fucking funny. And then they focus grouped it and killed it, and it went to TV and made like 4 episodes, and it died.
It was called Powerless. I just looked it up.
Thank you, Leon. And yeah, like there are more too. You know, like there are some really great kind of like strange underground super, like there's one about there's one that I really like called Chew.
I've heard about that.
Yeah, like Chew is about a police officer who is a he's a taste psychic. So basically that means like when he eats things, he gets psychic impressions from them. So like he's a cop and has to like wind up kind of like tasting dead bodies and things like that to be like, okay, what happened to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think twists on the stories are cool and interesting. I also think there's room for doing it straight. I just would, when the Penguin is like talking about like wealth inequality and revolution and stuff, cool. Pay it off though. It needs to mean, like, it feels like they just threw stuff at the wall because it was different. It didn't actually write like a full story with like themes and motifs and character arcs.
But that's Telltale, right? Because they're banking on 2 other seasons to flesh out that storyline. Unless you're Fable, in which case, like, for crying out loud, why don't we have a second season of Fable? It was so good.
Have you played the Batman Telltale game, Johnny?
No,
Okay.
I've seen a little bit of it on YouTube, but I have the first one in my Abyss.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you know what that means,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, even if the second season,
we'll talk again in 2040.
yeah, even if the second season did pay some of that stuff off, I still think it should work as one season in some capacity. This should be more done with what they changed. Anyway, that
is like part of Telltale's problem right now, is that they've, you know, they're too Telltale.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of really warranted criticism, and there's just some people who don't like that style of game, and sometimes those things get muddied and it frustrates me, but I think everyone on this call understands the difference.
I really like a lot of their early efforts. I think that their revival of Sam and Max was admirable. They did really, really well to bring them back. The first couple seasons of The Walking Dead, fantastic. Like I said, Fable, I fucking loved Fable. I think Fable was their best one yet.
Tales from the Borderlands is my favorite.
Oh, yeah, I haven't played that one yet, but I hear that it's remarkably good.
Yeah, and also it has an art style which is okay looking like the way it does.
Well, Fable looked rather like the comics, too.
Yeah, that's fine. It's mostly just Game of Thrones is the one that really killed me, because they were going for realism and they just couldn't.
Nah.
Poor decision. So we're into question time, so I'm going to hit you with some questions. Is that okay?
If I've got answers, I'll do my best.
All right. Athos asks, favorite Deep Space Nine character?
Ooh. It's either Garrick or Kira. Kira in terms of like the main cast, Garrick in terms of the supporting characters.
I like the Alien.
There's a lot of aliens.
You know which one I mean, though.
And some of them are sexy too.
Are we talking about one of the sexy aliens or
sexy aliens?
I don't want to like shame anyone.
No, I think he's talking the Liquid Alien.
I've never seen a single episode of Deep Space Nine.
Okay.
That's a shame, Austin. It's
that's the best one.
I disagree.
Okay, that's fine. It's fine. You can feel that way, but it is.
It has the best story structure. I'll give it that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Austin, Deep Space Nine is the Star Trek that. How do I put this? It has the style of a show that's now, where like
You mean
they're at,
good?
like,
Good?
they plan out each season.
They
and,
have
like,
modern sensibilities.
Yes, exactly. They have modern sensibilities within the show. I'm not trying to like shit on the rest of Star Trek. Obviously, I love pretty much all Star Trek except Enterprise. No, I like the last season of Enterprise. But yeah, Deep Space Nine is wonderful. Garrick, I love a whole lot. He's just wonderful and bad. So I dig it. And Kira's great. I love that. I wonder if they made that show later, if Kira would have been Kira, because she's a terrorist. That's like her whole thing. She's a terrorist. And this was made, pre 9/11, where it was kind of okay to say that, I guess. Not super okay, but like we were in love with terrorists back then or anything. But like it wasn't like the dirtiest word that we've ever heard. So yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I really love Kira Nerys. She is my favorite. As I said, I'm reading the Deep Space Nine relaunch novels again, and I like revisiting that character. Yep, that's what I have to say.
Worf.
he was in half of that show.
Oh, damn it. That was supposed to be a joke because he wasn't in it.
No, he was.
No,
yeah.
Fuck.
In season 4, they brought in Worf, I guess to help ratings or something. And they said, "Yeah, we'll just bring in Worf. Like, what is the actor even doing?" And it turns out not enough. So he said yes. So yeah, and that was fun.
I really wanged that one, boys.
It was fine.
I share Leon's love for Garrick. Absolutely.
Oh yes.
Like he's such a nuanced character. Love it.
Yeah.
I've also got a lot of underdog love for Ezri Dax.
I really like Ezri. You know what? Let me rephrase that. I really liked Ezri when I watched the show during its initial run. Mm-hmm. I watched this Ezri now, like recently. I get it. I get that Ezri dislike, and it has nothing to do with all the comparisons to Jadzia. It's just. There were a lot of Ezri episodes in season 7.
Yeah,
and they sort of went hard with her. Like, well, we only got one season with her, so we might as well go like full on in this one character. And it was too much.
I get that. I don't feel like that's a fault of the character or the actor.
No, not
I
at
think
all.
it's. I just feel that it was super brave to walk into like a TV show that's been running for like 6 years and be like, yeah, so we kind of want you to play this character, but also sort of not play this character so that you're like, you're kind of the same, but you aren't. And I feel like the actor did a really, really decent job of that. And I just like, I don't want to say favorite character, absolutely, but I definitely want to say like that's a brave thing to do, and I think she did a good job.
Yeah. I don't think there are very few characters on that show where like I don't like it when they're on camera. I guess you could say. Like
I have some Benjamin Sisko moments.
Really? Okay. No, that's fair. My biggest Benjamin Sisko moment, where I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can like this character anymore, was kind of how they handled one episode. And I want to compare it to another one while I'm on my Star Trek thing right now. While I'm on my Star Trek bullshit. So, in one of the best episodes of the series, in the Pale Moonlight, Captain Sisko is talking about all the morally questionable things that he did in order to do something he thought was right. And at the end, he's like kind of struggling with himself, whether or not he can live with doing something morally questionable, because, he's supposed to be like this upright person. And that's the end of the episode. And it's like, oh, I mean, the show isn't explicitly saying this was definitely good. It was just saying this is what happened, and we're all going to have to deal with it. Mm-hmm. But that's not the first super morally questionable thing he did. And it's handled so much worse in another episode. In another episode, he's tracking down Michael Eddington, because Michael Eddington betrayed him to join the Maquis. Spoilers for Deep Space Nine, sorry. And he tracks him down to this planet where all the Maquis are living. And Captain Sisko says, Worf, I want you to fire these poisonous torpedoes into the atmosphere of this planet. And Worf gives him kind of like a side eye, like, he doesn't explicitly say it, but he's like, are you serious? And then Sisko says, no, Worf. And Worf sort of like reluctantly, because it's his job, he's like, yes, sir. And he shoots poisonous missiles into the atmosphere of this planet. Now, presumably, they got away. And possibly no one was killed from that. And whatever. But here's the thing. They might have been. And at the end of the episode, instead of if the episode ended with like Sisko in his quarters, like kind of looking into his hands, not saying what have I done, but like that's the implication, like he's not sure if he should have done that, or he's not quite the same man anymore, then I'd be like, yeah, good episode. But at the end of the episode, that's not what happens. He goes up to Dax and he says, sometimes it's good being the bad guy. And he laughs. And he laughs. And he just walks off. It's like, are you fucking serious? That is like the worst thing that like a Starfleet captain has like done outside of like the rogue captains where that's the story.
That is like, I mean, for me, the thing is like, the thing that turns me off Benjamin Sisko sometimes is that we just get these like wildly disparate examples of his character. Like we get episodes where he goes into like alternate universes and he's like suddenly a badass. But then we get these episodes where he's like sweet and tender with his son. And then we get these other episodes where he's a complete asshole to his dad. And it's just like a lot of the time I just like I feel like the character just waves too far in each direction to serve the plot. And I don't know if that's Avery Brooks's acting, or like to the fault of the writers or something like that.
I think it's just. I mean, part of it is of course different writers, but I think a lot of it is this captain, perhaps more than any other captain, is just going through a lot of shit throughout this entire series run, and he's not going to be exactly the same in each episode, or he's definitely not going to be the same when it's over. Whereas most of the other captains are pretty much the same captain that they are at the end of the series that they were at the beginning. That's me like explaining it through like headcanon, though. The real answer is just, different writers have different interpretations of the character.
I guess. And he just seemed like such a malleable character that I never really I never really felt like I got a firm grasp of like who Benjamin Sisko was, apart from like one or two details.
He was Soldier Dad. That's always how I see him. He's like Soldier Dad. I mean, that's kind of how I see it. He loves children. There's like 4 or 5 different scenes where he in the series where he's with a baby. Suddenly there's a baby and he's like, oh, but he also just yells at people a lot. He's there, and those things are not necessarily incompatible.
I should say this though, that I always love watching Avery Brooks act.
Oh yeah,
like just because I get to these points with the character where I'm like, what? No, who? Get lost. It's always a joy.
It is probably one of my favorite lines, maybe in all of Star Trek, is a scene where a character he's in the past, he time traveled to the past, and someone says, what if I said I was sorry for these people? What good would that do? And then he says, it would be a start. And he just delivers it like he really means it. And I was like, oh, Avery Brooks. Okay, we've talked about this one way too long. And Austin's just sitting there like, fuck, guys, come on. This is like the second question.
Look, Austin, it's not our fault that you haven't, like, actually watched Star Trek.
I've watched, like, 3 seasons and, like, 8 movies.
Yeah, sure,
there's a lot.
I've given
that
it
is an
some
underwhelming.
time.
That is an underwhelming amount of Star Trek.
I think it's an overwhelming series that I have given a fair amount of time to, and I liked some of it.
Well, I think
Okay.
you're wrong.
Fair. I was going to give you guys a really softball question about like fuzzy animals or something, but fuck you. Here's a question from Omega Lesbian who asks, do you think it's worth trying to reach Trump voters / bigots / people who I fucked up the question, etc. Are the number of I can't do this question, my mouth is exploding. People who might change their mind are worth interacting with, people who won't. I fucked up the question. But, is it worth trying to change Trump voters' minds?
Yeah.
Yes, but not at the expense of your own self-care. That's how I feel. There's a limit to how much people are willing to change just based on your interactions. And people, when you go after someone and say, here's why you're wrong, people love to dig their heels in. Mm-hmm. People hate admitting they're wrong. It's so much more comfortable to just say that you're not. So and I get that way too. Like I feel you. It also sort of depends on who you're talking to. When you say Trump voters, that's a whole mess of a lot of people. If you mean a guy on Twitter whose username suggests they might actually be a Russian bot, or they're just some rando with a MAGA hat, no, this isn't worth your time. If it's your brother, maybe that's a conversation you can have. Maybe something you could say to, a family member who is otherwise you might think to be a good person is, even if you think this is in your best interest to support Donald Trump, there are a lot of marginalized people who are affected by this. Mm-hmm. And if you're comfortable with that, then okay, but it's a thing you should know, because what happens to you is not what is happening to the whole world. Your experiences are always anecdotal. They're never universal. And that's something to
empathy.
think about.
Like empathy.
Yeah.
Empathy is something that sometimes people have to learn.
Yeah.
And the guiding like prospect of empathy, the guiding principle, is caring for other people, then that should include people who maybe don't know what's best for them because of their anecdotal experiences, their indoctrinate uprising, not uprising, sorry, upbringing. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's worth talking to some people if they have malleable ideas, but some people are going to use that platform to cut you down. I agree with you, Leon. Absolutely. That never at the cost of your own well-being.
I think the allure of getting people to switch sides is very strong, and the math is very tempting. I think you saw this a lot in the last election, where the Clinton campaign was like, look at all these bad things this guy said. What a monster. And they were just like, yeah, that's why we like him. Like, when you see it on paper, you're like, okay, so if the person is for them and we switch them to us, that's like 2, because we took one from them and we got one. It's double the good. And in practice, that's not how it works, because most of the people who are against you for a reason. And the reason is they don't like you. And you're not going to change their mind. I think our energy is often best served energizing the people who agree with us but don't vote because they're not engaged, or maybe they don't really have an opinion and they just haven't.
But how do you engage people who aren't engaged?
You
don't just run out on stage with a backwards baseball cap and a bunch of slap bracelets and a pair of fucking neon bike shorts and be like, raise them up, everybody raise them up.
I think if you actually look at the polling, more Americans are for single-payer health care, or for campaign finance reform, or any of the gun controls, the biggest ones. It's outrageously in a majority people who want background checks, but those people don't vote for whatever reason. And I think if you look at the Democratic Party, especially, their messaging.
So you're talking about the Democratic Party as opposed to engaging on a grassroots level.
That's the go-to example, because they recently got shellacked in a big election because their whole platform was like, well, at least we're not those guys, and instead of just being like, hey, we stand for good stuff. Because people get excited about good stuff. They agree with good stuff, but their message was nothing, and it sucked. So, should we try to reach people? Like, yes, but if you just have the moral courage to be for popular good things, that would be better than trying to flip people who have already committed themselves to being malicious.
Yeah, and when trying, when thinking about how do I reach people with the worst ideas, I would say privately or through articles or through videos, not through giving them a big platform and hoping it all works out.
Yeah, and fight them in
YouTube
public.
debates.
Fight them in public,
Yeah,
because
the
then
best-
once there's a lot of eyes on it, they'll be very keen on admitting they were wrong. That's the best way.
Yeah. That's part of it, but also the best ideas don't always rise to the top. Sometimes it's just the loudest, and you don't want to just hand someone a microphone. So that's just my feeling on that.
Gosh,
Great question.
somebody being handed a microphone, that reminds me of a certain president.
Oh my. Maybe one last question before we go. I feel like we didn't get through a lot because I went on about Star Trek.
I could do a
Sorry.
couple more. I'm all right.
All right.
All right, so let's see. Here, we got one about everyone's favorite subject. Can you guys guess?
Wrestling!
Yep. Johnny just wanted to do it. Cyrith asks, Leon, do you
Yeah.
plan on watching the Greatest Royal Rumble this Friday in Saudi Arabia?
I sure do, except it's not this Friday. It's Friday the 27th.
I heard about this, and so sorry, I'm sneaking in here. Saudi Arabia has
Go
been on, I guess, what they're calling a charm offensive. Basically, they're spending a lot of money to tell non-Saudi Arabia countries that they're really cool. Of course, they
Can
are.
I just, as a quick
Yeah.
aside, be like, Saudi Arabia? Not big fans.
It's a hereditary monarchy with extremely oppressive. Like, we could go on. The weird thing, of course, with Saudi Arabia is they are technically our allies, despite being against everything we stand for, because they have a lot of oil money, and that's how the world works. So this whole thing, as far as I'm concerned, as an outsider, looks like part of this recent propaganda effort to be like, no, Saudi Arabia's cool and hip and modern. You want to come have your wrestle boys here? But Leon, now this is where you come in and tell me that was a wrong thing that I said.
They have really strict laws about how much oil you can apply to a semi-naked man's body.
Yeah.
Oh my god. So you're partly right. I'm sure there is a reason for this. More than just like, hey, maybe we can make a little money off it. It also is probably political. Sure, but here's the thing: it wasn't. They didn't have to like twist a lot of arms in their populace for this to happen, because wrestling is extremely popular in the Middle East. In Saudi Arabia, like I
Now,
read
when you say wrestling,
professional wrestling, the thing that we are talking about specifically WWE.
right?
Okay.
Got him.
Okay, let me just stop that right there before we go down a rabbit hole. But yeah, wrestling is popular there. It has been for quite a while. It's just a thing that is, well, I should say, it's not like the most popular sport, because I believe soccer is the most popular sport for pretty much everywhere. But in terms of like American imports, that's a thing that they dig. It's fun. Why not? So, this thing is happening.
Apparently, they're really
and
into KFC too.
Good for them, I guess. I mean, that's neat. Well, yeah.
Just like there might be some demographic crossover.
Yeah. But anywho, wrestling is happening there, and because it is, it's like the weirdest card too. It's a pay-per-view on the network, but it's also like the matches are like house show matches, meaning there's no build to them or storyline to them, except for a couple. And usually on house shows with, non-storyline matches that just happen for no reason. They're not like title matches where you expect someone to win a title, but at least one title will be awarded there because a title is vacant right now. It's just a weird show. there's like they're gonna have a Royal Rumble there, which is usually once a year, and there's usually like 30 people in the Royal Rumble, but this time there's 50, so it's gonna go on for fucking ever. And it's going to be very weird. There's like a lot of major stars who don't do matches very much are returning, like Chris Jericho and The Undertaker, and apparently Rey Mysterio is going to be there. It's just very weird. They're pulling out all the stops, and apparently tickets are like dirt cheap. So yeah, maybe this is more charm offensive than it is. Let's make a lot of money off wrestling. I don't know. I mean, I'm going to watch it. That was the question. Am I going to watch it? Of course I am, because I already pay for the network, and this is just another program that it's going to be on. Because the Middle East is way the heck over there, it's going to happen like in the early afternoon where I am. So that's different. People don't watch wrestling in the morning anymore because this isn't the 80s and it's not Saturday morning superstars. But yeah, I mean, I definitely will be watching it. It should be fun. The card looks good. We'll see how it shakes out. Yeah,
there's a lot going on there in terms of our national. God, I can't. I don't want to get into it. It's just foreign policy wise, we're in a weird place. Do you guys remember when we fucking had Rex Tillerson in the fucking office? How fucking weird was that? Can we just talk about that for a second? Nobody?
I barely know anything about the guy, except he was there, and now he's not.
Okay, crash course. There's a guy named Rex Tillerson. He was our Secretary of State, which is like the person who's in charge of being America to other countries. You may, well, I guess nobody does, but you may have known him, the thing he did before he was Secretary of State, when he was the fucking leader of Exxon, as in Exxon Mobil, the fucking oil company. So, like, if I, in my season of Dice Funk, was like, the guy in charge of national security is also the guy who owns the oil company, people are like, we get it, Austin. We get it. Cool social commentary, you ham-handed asshole. But it just was true. So, I don't know. Is it... Leon, save me.
Rex Tillerson was a bad man. Is that what we're talking about?
I mean, he's still a bad man. He's still alive. He just was not. He's not in the position anymore. No, it's just like talking about oil-rich countries and our way we handle them, and it's like it's so blatantly obvious the way we make decisions, being like, oh, you are committing human rights abuses. Everything we say about like Iran is also true about you, but they're our most dire enemy, and you're our ally because oil, and that's literally it. And it's just so naked, like no one's trying to hide it. I guess is what's flipping my wig.
Yeah. At some point, I'm not sure when it was, but at some point, someone, like, people just sort of like started nakedly saying the things that we are doing now. And I don't know. Like, here's the thing. Like, when it's a story. Here's the weird thing, and it's partly related to Trump. When something is like secreted out, like uncovered by journalism or something, and you're just like, aha, like it's a scandal. But if it's just the thing that you do, like every fucking thing that Trump says and does, it's like, oh, I mean, it's bad, but yeah.
Yeah, media narratives are weird because it's like everyone knew for years that, this is just a random example, but like that Louis C.K. was the way he was and did the things he did, and it just wasn't a story, and then until suddenly it was. Like, sometimes things can be known and not like viral in the way they need to be. And so like, I'm sure if the wind had blown differently, it would have been like a scandal, like fucking Ben Carson's buying a $12 million table or whatever. Like, that was a story. But like, there's constant waste like that by corrupt individuals. It's just like that one became a story. So these things are, if not arbitrary, capricious. And we are.
Nobody gives a fuck if it's your brand, Austin.
I guess we're basically out of time. There's some good questions in here. I hope I remember next week to bring them back, because I wanted to answer some of these. We're just out of time.
No rapid fire?
No, we don't really have time because some of these deserve some more work. So, like a quick one, King Calamity asks if any of you have experience with Armored Core. I do. I've played a couple of them. They're pretty good. I miss From Software making non-Souls games. I'm a big fan of Lost Kingdom. Those games owned, but now they just make Dark Souls, which is good. I like Dark Souls and Bloodborne, but they're kind of a everyone expects the one thing from them now, but they used to do other things like Armored Core, which is exciting. So I assume you guys have not played it.
I don't know what that is.
Armored Core is
I have not.
It's a giant robot game.
Cool.
I was gonna say I'm really, really excited for the new Mech Mercenary that's coming out.
Yeah, it's more of a strategy game, right?
No.
No?
You're thinking BattleTech.
There's so many robot games.
Well,
what about Into the Breach, Johnny? That's also a robot game.
Look, BattleTech is the same universe. It's just that there is actually going to be a new MechWarrior Mercenaries game.
Robots.
Big ass mechanical, usually bipeds. They're not robots because they don't pilot themselves.
I just realized that we're going to get some corrections. Actually, the definition of a mech, I know, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. All right.
But yeah, MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries is a thing that's coming out this year. It's going to be good. It's going to be co-op. I want it.
All right, so out of time, good episode. Bring it in. Teamwork on 3. 1, 2, 3, teamwork. We did it.
Teamwork.
No, I missed it. Right before we go, I just want to say that the new artist/writer of Nancy, the comic strip, is great, and I never knew I needed this comic strip in my life until just now. If anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about, Nancy is like an extremely old comic strip that's like good and pure and like often not funny. It's like the Family Circus, except with more respectability. Mm-hmm. A new writer took over like a week ago, and it's very good. It's like all the jokes are like about modern stuff that people are actually talking about, and people hate it. Like the people who normally read this comic strip are like, the original writer of this 70 years ago would never write anything like this. It's very good stuff about a child who is actually like living in the modern world and experiencing it and talking like a normal person. My favorite one thus far is I'm gonna read you a comic strip on the air now because this is where we are now. I love it so much. Nancy and Sluggo are sitting by a tree and they're both looking at their phones because that is literally what kids do, and it's fine. And Sluggo says, "Nancy, what do you want out of life?" And she says, "To be famous without having to work." You? And Sluggo says, "I'd settle for just not having to work." And Nancy thinks, how is Sluggo going to even get anywhere in life if he doesn't have ambition? And you rapscallion. I like this kid now. It's very good. She like bitches at her teacher, and it's great. This is nonsense. Like this comic strip shouldn't be like this. It's like if freaking Garfield suddenly turned like into this like rated R nightmare. Like it's just the opposite of what it is. And it's like all of a sudden funny. This is nuts.
My favorite Family Circus is the one where Jeffy gets really into mining Bitcoin and runs up the family's electricity, and it ruins all their lives, and they become homeless. It's very modern.
A couple comic strips later, the artist starts trolling the audience who doesn't like that this is different. So apparently some people don't like how it's drawn now, even though it's almost identical. So the new artist like draws them as completely wacky and like misshapen on purpose. And Sluggo's like, Nancy, you look a little off. And then she says, actually, this is just a Snapchat filter. And it says, cartoonist note, any questionable art from now on is because Nancy and Sluggo are using a Snapchat filter.
That reminds me of those fucking diaper babies who are like, we have to uncuck this SJW artwork, and so they Photoshop all of the video game characters just to have bigger boobs, and that's the only difference. That's the only change they make, and they're like, "Yes, as God intended, uncucked."
Oh, I love this. I love this so much. I didn't expect this to be part of my life, but it is. So thank you to, I want to say Olivia James. If I'm mispronouncing your last name, I apologize. There's an I in it, and it might be Jaimes. So if I'm wrong, I apologize. But you're great, and I love you.
Coming out a little strong there.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I don't care. So are we done? Should we
I just
go?
want to say, remember that Barbara Bush was a bad person. So...
Oh, yes.
That's just important to keep in mind.
It really is. Let's go.
Okay.
All right. I'm sorry. Unless, Johnny, you had, like, any final words? Like you
No, I
sometimes do.
think you guys clinched it.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Like,
All right
there between admirable editorial on the rejuvenation of a 70-year-old comic strip and then slagging a dead woman who... deserves slagging.
That wasn't a moral. Like, I'm not trying to make any like analysis. That was just a fact. I'm just reporting the facts.
Yeah, she was a pretty bad person.
So
yeah, cool. Really looking forward to these comments.
Baby!